Today I will be doing a presentation on the science behind preparing/cooking Italian stuffed flank steak. First, begin by mincing one small shallot with a sharp knife and cutting board. Also mince 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley, 1 teaspoon of sage, 1 teaspoon of basil. You'll have to be very careful because you're having to get very small pieces in the cutting board because it needs to be very, very fine throughout the entire process. Once you have completed this step, you can move on to the next step, which is combining all of the ingredients. To combine all of the ingredients, you need to combine the garlic, shallot, parsley, basil, sage, and olive oil into one small bowl, mixing as you go through. Make sure everything is stirred in properly, and make sure you get the right amount of olive oil to where everything that is in the mixture can stick together. As you can see in the video, I put the olive oil in last, and then I am mixing to make sure everything is combined equally. The next step is to slice horizontally across the steak, butterflying it, and then pound the steak into 2 thin rectangles. Make sure to position the steak so that the grain runs parallel to the edge of the counter. Once pounded, spread the mixture you just created evenly over the surface. The chemistry that you can tell that's happening is very, very interesting. It's about the meat itself. So when using red or dark meat, the muscles are made up of fibers that are called slow twitch. These muscles are used for extended periods of activity, such as standing or walking, and need a constant energy source. The protein myoglobin stores oxygen in muscle cells, which use oxygen to extract the energy needed for constant activity. Myoglobin is a richly pigmented protein, and more myoglobin there is in the cells, the redder or darker the meat. So you can see how red the meat is on parts of this steak that we are using, and that means that these muscles have these fibers and that the energy source is much, much more consistent and constant where the meat is darker and more red. Next, you will need to lay prosciutto evenly over the steak, leaving 1-inch border along the top edge. In this video, I laid the prosciutto evenly across the steak. I wasn't really concerned about the border. Once making this meal a couple of times, you get in the habit of where you want the prosciutto to lay. After that, cover the prosciutto with even layer of cheese, leaving a 1-inch border along the top edge again if you need to. If not, just make sure you lay it over evenly and most parts of the steak get covered. Starting from the bottom edge, rolling up away from you towards the top, roll the steak into a tight log and place on a cutting board with the seam down. This will help the cutting process be a lot easier. Also, it is beneficial if you take toothpicks and you soak them in water. The toothpicks will become more strong once they are soaked in water, so you can place them in the steak to help with the cutting process, which is what you can see in the video right now. Using a sharp knife, slice rolls between pieces of the toothpicks. You need to do about 1-inch thick pinwheels, and that is what you should cut. After you cut the pinwheels, make sure you do season them lightly with salt and black pepper. This is just light seasoning that will help and add more flavor when cooking. Alright, so the next couple steps are very important, so please follow along closely as I will be talking about the procedures of cooking and also some of the science behind the cooking. So go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 and then heat a cast iron skillet over medium-high heat. You need to place the pinwheels that we just cut in a pan and brown for 3 minutes on one side, and then flip over and brown for 2 minutes on the other side. So the protein called myoglobin, which we just talked about, cows have slow twitch muscles, which are used for long periods of time and require a lot of energy. Myoglobin, again, is a protein with especially high in these types of muscles because they provide cows a consistent supply of oxygen. When the meat reaches 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 60 degrees Celsius, the myoglobin begins to oxidize, and the beef will turn brown. So this is how the beef turns from the red color to brown, is with the myoglobin oxidizing at a certain Fahrenheit. Another big transformation which happens as the Maillard reaction starts to occur. When you sear your meat, proteins and sugars within the meat break down, creating the Maillard reaction. About 3,000 to 4,000 new chemical compounds are formed during this process, giving the meat a more complex flavor overall. We will get back to more of the science here in just a second. So now you can see in the video, I have seared my meat on both sides. I am now taking it out of the skillet and putting it into an oven pan. Once you put it into this pan, you need to slide the pan into the preheated oven and cook it for about 8 to 10 minutes or until the steak reaches the desired doneness that you and your company would like. Once all of this is done, you will have very gorgeous looking steak. Again, this is due to the Maillard reaction, which occurs when the denatured proteins on the surface of the meat recombine with the sugars present. The combination creates the meaty flavor and changes the color. For this reason, it is also called the browning reaction. The Maillard reaction occurs most readily around 300 degrees Fahrenheit to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. When the meat is cooked, the outside reaches a higher temperature than the inside, triggering the Maillard reaction and creating the strongest flavors on the surface. Once this is complete, you can take the steak out of the oven and you will have the most gorgeous Italian stuffed flank steak that you can prepare for your guest. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed.